Hello and welcome to Golden Nerve Studios. This is the part 2 to the lever tutorial. So over here we have the build blueprint, and when I stand on it, all the pieces shake, and when I press the interact button, all of these pieces stop moving, but all of these pieces keep moving, and they move towards the correct position. Then it spawns in the lever blueprint, and so it acts just like normal. Make sure that you watch the previous video on how to build the lever, because in that video we show how to build this blueprint and also import all of the assets that we need for this, and also the build BP. So with this selected, select Control B, or you can go to Content Blueprints Lever BP. And in here we want to get the lever build BP. And I'll just drag that into here and then open that up. There's a lot of errors in this, but they shouldn't be too hard to fix. And it looks pretty complicated, but it's just a lot of duplicating the same thing over with just slight variations. But the main thing that we need to focus on is fixing the references to these. So we'll go to Content, Assets, Lever, and then Parts. And just so I can see the names of these better, I'm going to Control and then scroll, and then that'll make these bigger. So we have part 01, and so we'll come in here, find part 01, click the arrow, and then it will scroll down to find complete lever part, and we'll hit the arrow for that, and then we'll find 02 and do the same thing, find 02, and you could just search 2 and that could make it easier. So we got 2, and then we can search 3 and then find 3 and so forth. And then for 4 we want to do part 6, and when I first created this, I mixed up the numbers and stuff, so it's kind of out of order. So I'll just walk you through it. Part 5 is part 5, part 6 is part 7, part 7 is part 8, part 8 is part 9, and part 9 is part 11, and part 10 is part 10. So if I look at part 10, it's right there, but if I click complete part lever, it's over here, and if I make it visible, it's in the position that I want it to build. So this is just getting the location of where it needs to be, and then we use a timeline to lerp the location of this and move it to this location. But we keep it invisible and also keep the collision off because it's just a reference point for the location. And then in the event graph, I'll just show you what's going on. So when you overlap on this box, it'll start shaking, it'll set overlap, and it'll create the shaking sound effect, and there'll be a link down in the description for that. And then you'll want to go to sound effects, and then add, import, and then import the file that you download, Lego Shake, open that up, and that's it right there. And you'll want to open that and then click on that and click the arrow to bring that into here. And then this just gets a reference and plays it, and we're doing it this way instead of just play sound because we want to stop the sound when we stop overlapping over here. So over here, when you exit the box, we set it to not overlapping, and if we created the sound effect, we'll check if it's valid, and if we did, we'll stop the music. And then off of here, start shaking all of the Lego pieces. And I put a delay in front just so it's not bouncing up and down at the same time, but just to give it a bit of variety. And then this right here looks a little confusing, but what's happening, every time I press the E key, I add the index. And so just by default, the index is at 0. So the first Lego piece will still move if the index is at 0. And this timeline, it just makes it go up and down. And once it finishes, it just loops back around, checks if I'm still overlapped, and then does the same check again. And off of update, I just plug in the Lego part right here, and I created this function, shake, and this is just setting the location. So we get the location, we set the location, and then we add the location based off of this. And then that's just the same for all of these. And so once I press the E key, this one will no longer shake because it will be below 1. But since this one would still be 1 or equal to 1, it will still shake, but if I press it again, it'll add 1, and so I'll go to 2, and these two will both not be moving, and so forth. And then over here on event interact, we want to see if it's finished, because I don't want to keep doing it if it's already finished, and we just put a delay in there, otherwise it runs into issues. And then we add the index, and then we do all of the different pieces, and just on this one, we check what the index is, because depending on the index, we only want to move each piece depending on the index. So starting off, it's going to be 0, so it'll move the first piece, and then it'll add 1 over here. So the next time around, it'll be equal to 1, so then it'll move this piece. And you can see right here, complete and part 02. And so this is the reference of where this part needs to move to. So if I jump in here, we're getting the location of where it needs to move to, and the part that we're moving to is the part that we can visually see. And then it plays the building sound effect, which is in here. And then at the very end, once it gets to the last one, it equals 9, it moves the piece, and then it does once, says it's finished, sets the visibility to none for all of these parts, and then we want to spawn this right here. And so I'll do Control B just to get that lever BP, and then click the arrow. And so now we have that in there. And then if the shake SFX is valid, you want to stop that, which I think might actually work better. I'm going to do Control X, and that would be better at the end. Just in case somehow this shake sound effect is not valid, then it won't be able to disable the collision and stop the montage. And the montage that we'll be playing is over here on build 01. And so we'll need to go to content, characters, Lego guy, animations, and locomotion. And in here we'll see build. And if you don't already have build montage, right click on build and create montage. And so we'll click on that, and it's just a simple building animation. But then we'll want to go to lever and click the arrow for that. If in the build montage something doesn't look right, like if the hair was off point, if I go to the skeleton and go to Spino 5 and click on the transform, you could move this up and down and then hit key. But it looks fine, so I'll just leave it as that. Then if I click play, we can walk over here and all the pieces start moving. And the reason it sounds weird is because we need to fix the sound effects. So I'll click the browse button just to open up the Lego Shake, and I'll type in looping and take that. That's all we need to do for that. And I think the reason that it's going off multiple times is because it's sensing the sword and the shield as well. This just shows the reason why it's being jittery, because it's going off multiple times. So the other component, I get the display name, and once I overlap with it, you can see that there's several meshes that show up. And so I'm going to go to the character and then click on the capsule component, type in tag, and then click the plus, and we'll do interact. And just make sure to copy this because we'll need the exact spelling. And then off of other component, type in has tag, component has tag, and then B for branch, and plug that in and paste in interact, and then put true. And then copy this and paste it over here on the end overlap, and we'll just plug that in as well into the other component. Make sure it's an other component, and that says interact. And now if I step on it, now it shakes. And I can build. It's not playing the animation though. Then we want to drag over here and set movement mode, and then we'll set it to none, and we'll copy and paste this, plug it in, and set this to walking, and then plug this in like that. And this just needs to stay blank, and for this is supposed to be an event, so I'll delete that. And we'll need to go to the blueprints, the interact interface, and then add a new one, and then we'll call that build. And then in the BP character, we'll need to find the interact over here, and we'll want to click the drop down arrow, and off of started, we'll just want to get a little more space, drag this down, and then we'll select this and move this down, and then copy, paste, and then we'll plug this into here, and off of started, we'll plug that one in. And then off of this, we'll want to type in build, and then control, drag this into here, and drag this into here and delete that. And then if we go back to the lever build, we'll need to add in this. So in the interfaces, we'll see there's a new one called build, and we'll click implement event and then plug that in. And then also one more thing, we want to copy this right here from the event and drag stop, and we want to paste that at the end over here. So we'll just plug that in, and that's so that when it finishes, it'll make sure that we can walk again. So now if I click play, it'll shake all of the Legos, and then I can press E, and it'll play the animation. And now I can pull the lever. Alright, and then the final thing that we need to do is go to Assets, Lever, Parts, and all of these don't have the correct parts, so I'll just select all of these and press enter. I'll go out and click on the mat, and we'll click on Gray 01, and Part 1, and Part 3, and Part 5, and then Part 7, and Part 8, and then that's all the gray ones. I'm just going to close out all of the ones I just did, just to make a little bit more space. Next we'll do Gray 2, and Part 02, Part 06, and then I'll do the emissive green, and there'll be Part 9, and then Part 10, it gets orange on the bottom, and then Gray 03 on the top. And then the last one, Part 11, also gets Gray 03. Alright, that's all for this tutorial for creating a Lego building system that creates a blueprint afterwards that actually works. The next tutorial will be a soccer tutorial, so make sure to look for that. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.